part of a construction crew that has recently been contracted to begin development of apartment buildings that will stand where an asylum once did. A demolitions team has since turned the old building into rubble, and our first task is cleaning the rubble in order to begin working on the new structure. Most of what remains is just chunks of concrete, some wood, and a whole lot of ash. Although some items that the building used to house survived the demolition. I could see the remnants of some old beds, a couple of doors that were still intact, old medical equipment, etc. However, by far the most interesting item that I found was an old notebook from a previous patient of the asylum. It was located in a small metallic box that was wedged between the two pieces of concrete. Although it was understandably a bit beaten up, a lot of the pages were still legible. After reading through several pages, it's safe to say that I'm very concerned about what may have taken place in that building while it was still standing. I've decided to begin transcribing its contents, and will share excerpts I've been able to successfully transcribe here. I think it's important that this information is shared. Here's what I've been able to successfully transcribe so far.
I've had a blank notebook since I arrived here. We were only allowed to have a small number of possessions, but I felt this would be important to keep with me. I was finally able to get my hands on a pen. One of the nurses made the mistake of leaving one on her cart when she was making her rounds, and I took the opportunity to grab it while she was attending to another patient. They don't let us have pens. I assume their justification is because it'd be dangerous for our own safety. One of the nurses made the mistake of leaving one on her cart when she was making her rounds, and I took the opportunity to grab it while she was attending to another patient. They don't let us have pens. I assume their justification is because it'd be dangerous for our own safety, or the safety of other patients for us crazies to get our hands on one. I think they're more scared we might be willing to stab someone to get out of this place. It's begun to feel weird calling those of us that are forced to live here patients. It feels dishonest. This place is a prison. The patients are prisoners. The orderlies are guards. The nurses don't seem to know the first thing about medical care. But by far the strangest thing about this place is that none of the other patients I've interacted with seem the least bit crazy, and everyone's memory on how they ended up here seems very hazy. Personally, although very fragmented, I can recall some of my past. I remember being in some form of a courtroom, with a judge handing down what I assumed to be charges against me, and then I was in a doctor's office, and then I was being shipped off here. It feels like I'm recalling a dream, not my past. But I think that may be my brain's way of coping with the sudden changes in my life. All of the patients met the head of the asylum on the day that we arrived. The orderlies referred to him as the doctor. He's probably in his 70s if I had to guess. He's mostly bald, but the patches of white hair really give it away. He gave us a little rundown of the place and why we are here. They call this place New Hope. Apparently, we're the first group of patients that this place has housed. We were reassured that we are exactly where we need to be in order to heal. Exactly what needs healing wasn't specified. I'd say there were probably a couple dozen other patients in the room with me. I noticed we were all wearing wristbands. Mine read Alana, number 17, followed by a red dot. I'm assuming 17 is a patient number that's been assigned to me. I saw others with a blue dot on their wristband. Maybe it's to help the nurses know which medication each patient needs. We were also given a schedule that we were told is going to be strictly followed every day. Breakfast is at 8 a.m., morning medicine is administered at 9 a.m., lunch is at noon, treatment is from 1 to 5 p.m., dinner is at 6 p.m., evening medicine is administered at 8 p.m., and everyone needs to be in their room with all lights off at 10 p.m. Between noon and 1 p.m., we are allowed to venture into a fenced area outside where there is a small basketball court and a few benches. Any time during the day outside of this schedule was recreational time that we could use to chat with other patients in the lounge or spend time alone in our rooms. We were also told that our treatment isn't going to begin until we've been here for 2 weeks, but the nurses have already begun to hand out medicine at regular intervals. The doctor wants to give us time to become familiar with the place. I spent the first few days only leaving my room when required. On day 3 or 4, in an attempt to make the best out of a bad situation, I decided to venture out into the lounge during recreational time before bed. The lounge is fairly large. In fact, the entire building is seemingly way larger than it needs to be to house a couple dozen patients. There were small clusters of patients talking among themselves throughout the room. I spotted 2 of them sitting at the table in the corner of the room to my left. In a desperate attempt to be social, I walked over to them and took a seat at the table. They introduced themselves to me as Kristen and Leo. They both looked around my age, mid to late 20s. Kristen has beautiful dark black hair and a very kind face. Leo was wearing a hat, and his hair must be short or non-existent because I didn't see any.
We figured you'd eventually get bored of staring at the walls in your room all day.
Shut up, Leo. Who can blame her? I'm sick of every wall in this place.
Kristen said. I certainly agreed. This place sucks. Why does everyone seem so normal? Aren't we all supposed to be crazy or something?
If anything, living here is what's going to make me lose my mind.
Leo said, his face failing to hide his frustration. We chatted for probably 10 to 15 minutes. We shared what we could remember about ourselves and our lives outside the asylum. Kristen is pretty sure she used to be a barista, and Leo seems to recall attending school. He couldn't remember what major he may have been going to school for. An orderly came into the room and informed us we needed to be in our rooms with the lights off in 5 minutes. After the usual goodbyes, Kristen grabbed my arm.
We've been brainstorming some ways to get out of here. We could use your help.
After seeing me nod my head in agreement, she continued.
During recreational time, meet us here and we'll figure something out. Be careful.
And with that, we made our way back to our rooms. I guess now I have something to look forward to while I'm trapped here. A couple of friends and a bit of hope might make my stay a little more palatable. Day 11. The orderlies sometimes talk amongst themselves within earshot of my room. Yesterday I heard one mention that the project would be underway soon. He said that if the doctor couldn't find the cure, then no one could. I guess he was talking about our treatment that starts in a few days. I have to say that I'm increasingly more nervous the closer the day gets. What our treatment will entail has never been clarified, but I guess it'll be different per patient depending on what's wrong with them. Things have not gotten any better. Having Kristen and Leo to talk to is great, but none of the staff seem to give a fuck about any of us. Isn't the building and the staff here for us? Isn't the goal of this whole operation to help us out? The orderlies treat us like we're subhuman. The nurses aren't warm and caring as most nurses I can remember were. And we haven't seen the doctor since our first day. I even saw 2 incidents where orderlies struck patients after purposefully instigating a confrontation with them. Kristen, Leo, and I have decided that we're going to demand a conversation with the doctor. If he wants us to stay here, he's going to need to answer some of our questions. We intend to bring up the several incidents of violence we've seen between the orderlies and the patients, and the general disdain that they treat us with. I hardly think we'll get within earshot of the doctor, but if we can manage to lobby for some more lenient rules, it may give us a better shot at figuring a way out of this place. We've decided to wait until our treatment begins. Day 15. So, treatment came and went today. I do not remember the 4 hours at all. At 1 p.m. I was practically vibrating out of nervousness. An orderly stopped by my room and escorted me down a few hallways. The next thing I remember is sitting in my room, waiting for the bell to go off for dinner. I didn't feel at all rejuvenated, as if I had slept for 4 hours. It's like I have a strange blind spot in my memory for that section of the day. Our meals are served in a room adjacent to the lounge. I always felt like I was in high school again every time I stepped in that room. Every patient grabs a tray and makes their way down a line of food, grabbing whatever they want. There are a bunch of cafeteria-style tables for us to sit at. I'd estimate there were enough tables for around 200 people. This gave the 3 of us some space to sit secluded and talk without any of the orderlies, kitchen staff, or other patients hearing. Another aspect of our meals that bring back memories of high school cafeteria is how awful the food is. Tonight's meal consisted of chicken so bland that it convinced me they had found a way to suck flavor out of an already unseasoned and overcooked chicken breast, and instant mashed potatoes that were still a bit powdery. Delicious. While we were eating, I noticed that I was very absent-minded and needed reassured on the topic of our discussion several times. I think being trapped here is starting to take a toll on me mentally. I know Kristen and Leo have expressed their growing frustration with being forced to live here. My suspicions were confirmed when I asked how their treatment went. Kristen dropped her fork.
You know, I really wish I could tell you.
I can't remember a damn thing. I forgot we even had our treatment today, until Kristen jogged my memory.
Leo chimed in. I was a little relieved I wasn't alone. It's like I took a nap, but I feel like I've run a marathon. We went back to silently eating as one of the orderlies walked by us. Kristen pushed the tray away from herself, probably tired of trying to choke down her food.
That's it. I'm going to demand to speak to the doctor. We can't wait any longer.
I agreed. We said we'd wait until we knew what our treatment was, and we're no closer to that information now than we were yesterday. Kristen decided it would be best for her to go speak with the orderly by herself. He may feel threatened if he sees 3 of us walking up to him at once. And we've seen what some of them do when they claim to feel threatened. Kristen spoke with the orderly for no longer than 20 seconds and, to our surprise, returned with the news that he was going to send our request through to the doctor. Before dinner was even over, the orderly approached our table to let us know that the doctor had agreed to see us in the office during recreational time, after our medicine is administered at 8 p.m. This is certainly not what any of us expected to hear, but we weren't going to argue. After dinner, I was more excited than nervous to visit the doctor. He seemed so sympathetic when we met him on our first day here. I had a feeling he might actually hear us out. Maybe he wasn't aware of how terrible the orderlies treated us. At 8 p.m., the nurse went through her usual routine of rolling an annoyingly loud cart down the hallway, handing out pills, and making sure they were being swallowed. I have to say, this was the first time since I arrived that I was happy to see her. After everyone had swallowed their pills, we were allowed to head back to the lounge. Kristen, Leo, and I met at our usual table and headed over to the orderly overseeing the lounge. He had been informed beforehand that we were going to be escorted to the doctor's office. He led us down several hallways, a couple of which I swear seem familiar. I think I may have been led down some of them on my way to treatment earlier. When we arrived at the doctor's office, the orderly ushered us inside and left the room. I don't think I've ever seen a more cluttered office. Books, papers, diagrams, models, whatever the hell else were everywhere. Just as we were making our way over to the 3 chairs that had been placed in front of the doctor's desk, we were met with a resounding
"Hello!"
from the man behind it. Being a bit caught off guard, I don't think any of us responded. Leo might have choked out a hi under his breath.
So I've been told that you 3 have some grievances that you wish for me to be aware of. I must admit I'm in quite a hurry, but I do not take these things lightly.
He set his glasses down on the desk in front of him.
Please, explain what has been bothering you.
A bit surprised we had made it this far. It took me a few seconds to collect my thoughts. We feel uninformed about, well, everything. We're not sure why we're here and...
The orderlies are fucking monsters!
Kristen yelled. I have never seen her raise her voice at all before. The doctor was visibly a bit shaken.
Please, don't speak like that. What would drive you to make such an accusation?
She continued.
They treat us like garbage, and we've seen them physically assault several patients.
Oh my. You must be assured that such behavior is not acceptable for any employee of mine. You have my word that I will look into that immediately.
A phone could be heard coming from a room or 2 down the hall. An orderly peeked his head in and informed the doctor who was trying to reach him. I can't remember his name, but the doctor was immediately out of his chair.
Please excuse me, this is important. I'll be back in a moment and we can continue our discussion.
He rushed out of the door and down the hall in the direction that the ringing had originated from.
I have to say, I feel a bit better.
Kristen said. I agreed. I guess. He seems to really want to help, or at least hear us out. Leo was a bit more skeptical.
He's still responsible for running this place. It's his job to know what his staff is up to.
As we waited for the doctor to return, my curiosity about the clutter on his desk continued to grow. Considering I could faintly hear the doctor on the phone, I felt safe to grab one of the books off the desk that looked interesting. The front and back cover of the book were completely blank and made of leather. Opening up to the first page, in big, cursive letters, I saw the title, The Vaccine, The Cure. I turned to the next page and let out a gasp that attracted the attention of Kirsten and Leo. There were 13 names listed on the page, separated into 2 groups, an experimental group and a control group. One group consisted of 20 members and the other of 10. A red or blue mark next to each group coincided with the colors of our wristbands. Kristen and Leo were part of the group with 10 members, and I was listed in the other group. There was more to the book, but I could no longer hear the doctor's voice, and the sound of footsteps coming from the hallway confirmed that he was on his way back. I quickly shut the book and did my best to place it on the desk in the same orientation that I had found it. The doctor came back into the room and made his way behind the desk.
Sorry about that. Hope you don't think I was being rude.
Kristen spoke up.
It's fine. You must be a busy man.
The doctor chuckled.
Yes, things can get a bit hectic around here. Was there anything else you 3 wish to tell me?
We just need to know that we will be treated better, I said, thinking it would be best not to bring up what I had found in the doctor's book.
Like I said, you have my word. Now, I think you 3 should be headed back to your rooms now. It's almost 10.
An orderly entered the room and gestured for us to follow him back to the lounge. We didn't have any time to talk to each other about the experience before we all needed to be in our rooms. My head is still spinning quite a bit from finding my name in that book. With my name on one of those lists, I think it's safe to say that the rest of it probably concerns me, and maybe holds the secret to my treatment and what I may be treated for. I am hopeful that the doctor will follow through on his word, but I know that I need to find out what is in the rest of that book.